Hello and welcome once again to Solo Board Gaming presents The Shores of Tripoli. At last, The Shores of Tripoli, a strategy game by Kevin Bertram. And it's produced by Fort Circle Games. And thank you very, very much to Fort Circle Games for supplying this review copy for me to have a look at. Now, in The Shores of Tripoli, we have, of course, the US Navy and Marine Corps versus the Pirates of Tripoli, a conflict which took place around the turn of the 19th century. And this game is covering sort of 1801 to 1806, that kind of time frame. And it's a game for 1 to 2 players. Again, so attractive that this has always been a great 2-person game. One person playing the United States, the other person playing Tripoli. And it has a beautifully worked AI bot for the solo player. So what's not to like? Absolutely perfect. So, without further ado, let's have a look at what we get in the box. The Shores of Tripoli by Kevin Bertram from Fort Circle Games. So another big attraction for the Shores of Tripoli is lots of wooden playing pieces. Look at these. First of all, a bag of frigates. Let's take a quick look. I do like wooden pieces. It shouts quality. And here we have frigates. There's a US frigate there. There's a Tripolitan frigate in red. And we have some frigates of Sweden in yellow, our allies, which may or may not prove useful depending on when we can introduce them to the game. Beautiful, nice wooden pieces. We like that a lot. And those are not the only ships, because we also have some smaller vessels here. Now, these are the pirates, the corsairs, if you like. First of all, of Tripoli in red. Those small corsairs, the pirating boats. Potential Tripoli allies in orange. And the small boats of the United States in blue. Fantastic. We also have some little cubes. Now then, these little cubes are the land forces. We have the white Arabic land forces. We have the red Tripoli land forces. And in blue, there's not a lot of them, look. We have the US Marines. And finally, for these real quality wooden pieces, we have gold coin. Gold coin, and we have 12 of these wooden gold coins. That's going to be important, because that's how the pirates are going to win the game, or one of the ways the pirates can win the game, and some wooden counters for the tracks on the board. So let's have a look at the board. Now, there are so many reasons why I love this board. Watch. First of all, like all the other components, it's a high quality product. It's a nice, thick board. In fact, let me move the box out of the way and spread the board out a little. So without moving the camera, at the moment, this is your board like so. A superb board. Now, the reason I say it's a particularly good board, I've not had one like it before. The thing about solo games, if you're playing solo, I mean, it's great for 2-player anyway. It's great popping colour. It's very simple artwork. You've got the coast of North Africa there, for instance, and the Mediterranean Sea. And you've got Spain, Gibraltar, Portugal here. So it's a great looking board, but for a solo player, it's perfect because it's narrow. That not only means I can play it on my coffee table in the lounge in comfort, and I have, but it also means, you know, when you're playing solo and you're very often playing, well, whether it's a bot actually, or whether you're playing both sides to the best of their ability, as we often do in war games, for instance, it can tend to be a bit of a stretch getting to the other side of the table if you've got the other player, the AI set up over there, for instance. Nice and narrow board, keeps everything nice and tight. I really like that. That was a sort of unexpected pleasure, if you like, of the board. Now, let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. Well, hey, do you know what? I almost have it there. I have most of it in. So this is the board in all of its simplified glory. And right from the off, its design tells us that nobody is going to be confused here by what they're looking at, which is another reason, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, why this game is such a brilliant entry-level game. If you've got, well, we all do, don't we? Have friends and family that are not war gamers. We have friends and family that are not even board gamers, if you like, of any sort. Then you open this out, they're not going to be intimidated by it. And it's attractive, the colour and the general pleasing design. So, first of all, the obvious things, these big, bright coloured circles on the board. They're harbours. And here we have the Tripolitan allies of Tangier, Algiers and Tunis. Their harbours are in orange. And we have US safe harbours here in Gibraltar, over here in Malta. And we have, oh, and also Alexandria over here in Egypt. And we also have the harbours of Tripoli. Tripoli itself, Benghazi and Dern. So you have the harbours then where ships are berthed, and harbours can be invaded by land, bombarded from the sea. And then you have patrol zones. Who was wondering what those strange, almost circular, but not quite semicircular, light blue shapes are around many of the harbours? These are patrol zones. And this is where the US and maybe Swedish allies will set up their patrols to try and prevent the corsairs venturing out into the Mediterranean to wreak havoc on merchant shipping and earn their gold. Those big, beautiful gold wooden pieces that we saw a couple of minutes ago. So as a US player and as a solo player, solo only plays the US side, by the way, the US versus a Tripoli AI. So as a US player, you are trying to patrol these zones and bottle up the potential pirate fleets in their harbours. And we have a couple of tracks. First of all, we have the year tracks from 1801 to 1806. And each of those years is split into spring, summer, fall, and winter. So that's how the game is structured, if you like. So, how do we play the game? Well, we have a great rule book to help us do that. And honestly, the rules, once you take away the intro and the solitaire appendix, is 8 pages. Let's have a look. You can get into this so quickly. And I was able to get into this immediately, basically. As soon as I busted open the game box, I went to the back where the solitaire rules are. We'll have a quick look in a second. Placed my setup pieces on the board, divided the cards as it instructed me to do so, and I learnt the game by playing it from there. It really is that easy to do. It's beautiful, full colour, explains all the different components, victory conditions, then game setup. So this gets into your rules, sequence of play, American play, Tripolitan play, movement and combat, and let's have a look. There's a little bit more here. There we go. Big text, big spacing, easy to read. This is not going to put anyone off at all. I was surprised, if you like, pleasantly surprised by this. And finally, we get, as I mentioned before, on the back page to the solitaire rules, like so. And there is an index for the how to use the solitaire cards, or rather, how to use the cards in solitaire play on the back, which you do have to refer to quite a lot until you get used to them. But other than that, a dead simple, really pleasing 30-minute read, honestly, for the rules for the Shores of Tripoli. Now, with that, and for me, just as importantly, I'm speaking from the UK. I'd heard of this conflict, but I think only because of my own interest in history, I'd heard of the conflict, but never really investigated it. And this is the historical supplement and designer's notes. Well, in my opinion, absolutely essential. And this educated me so much to the way the fledgling United States, around the turn of the 19th century, conducted itself against its first real test, I suppose, in the international sphere against the pirates of Tripoli. Now, of course, not long before this game starts, having gained independence, the United States therefore lost the protection of the British Royal Navy, who would have protected her merchant vessels trying to trade in this area. So, of course, that protection was withdrawn, naturally. The United States is now independent. But filling that vacuum, filling that power vacuum, we find Tripoli and its allies raiding the US merchant vessels, a situation that the US could not put up with for too long. And indeed, along with this review copy of the game, I also received a letter from the US President Thomas Jefferson that I could peruse. And this is the letter he wrote to Yusuf Karamanli, the Pasha and Bey of Tripoli, on May the 21st, 1801. Great and respected friend. He was pointing out that the US has now found it expedient to detach a squadron of observation. That's what they called it, a squadron of observation. No more. Into the Mediterranean Sea to superintend the safety of our commerce there. We recommend them to your hospitality and good offices, should occasion require their resorting to your harbours. So with all good intentions and all great diplomacy, by the time the first squadron of observation reached the Mediterranean, Tripoli had already declared war. So it's 1801, and that's where our game starts. We've seen all those lovely wooden pieces, our land armies, including the US Marines, the Corsairs. We've seen our nice wooden frigates that we're speaking about in this letter here. Now, when they clash, how do we resolve the conflict? Well, we'll look at that more closely, of course, but to help, we get an abundant supply of dice. That is so generous. Look at those guys. I've opened the original pack and I've now put them in this bag. A wonderful supply of dice. And any people that have watched my videos before, they will know I love dice rolling. I do enjoy dice, and that's a very generous supply. Thank you, Fort Circle, for that. And we drive the game with decks of cards. Now, this is where quality really shines through. We have a deck of cards for the United States, and we have a deck of cards for Tripoli with beautiful artwork on the back. Let me just show you these cards here. They all have Thomas Jefferson on the back, obviously, as you can see there. Let me turn them over and just look at the artwork available on these cards. So well sourced, beautifully produced. Lovely illustrations there of a frigate. So anyone that loves sail will enjoy looking at the Burn the Philadelphia, looking at these illustrations on the cards, and they're a lovely linen texture on the cards. Absolutely beautiful. And it's these cards, and we'll look at the detail in a moment, that will drive the game. The player, your opponent, playing Tripoli, or you play it yourself, obviously, if you're playing a two-player game, or the AI will use the Tripoli cards in the same manner. And there you have the Pasha illustrated on the back of those cards. Turn them over, and again, some beautiful illustrations from the times, with some of the pirate vessels, battling frigates there, and so on. Morocco declares war. How beautiful is that? And in them, yes, there are 3 cards, and it's these 3 here. Yep, it's these 3 here. This card is only used in solitaire play. You do not use them in a two-player game. So, Second Storms, 5 Corsair Check, and Raid or Build are 3 cards that are only used in solitaire play. And that's part of the Tripolitan AI. So we have those beautiful cards too. And that then completes the components of the game. Beautiful quality components, 2 wonderful books, one the Rulebook and one the history of the conflict, and this simplified game board that we've had a look at in detail. So the next thing to do then is to look at a solo setup for this and explain a little bit more.